Welcome to Saturday's Warrior on this Friday night edition of Saturday's Night Live as we come to you live right after the BYU West Virginia game. If you're joining us live uh, after this really weird victory, I mean, BYU advances to 5-0. We saw tonight a lot of things that I could talk about that I really like, but also a lot of things that I really don't like. Uh, and Adam, I'll let you pick where or which one of those two it is. But before we do, please be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're here after every game, breaking it down, discussing, as well as we come to you throughout the week with our picks as well as previews with the matchup of the week. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell, all that stuff, so you can catch all the content as it comes out. So, Adam, which is it? Are we going to talk about what we like or don't like first? Good news or bad news?
Let's start with the good. We'll start complaining later.
Okay.
Because I think there was plenty of good, like you said. I mean, first of all, the dimes that Bear was dropping all over the field, the 350 passing yards, incredible stuff. This is what we had to have, in my opinion, this game and next game. You have to show that you have a downfield passing attack to be able to take some of the pressure off of LJ Martin, make it so teams know if they're going to stack the box, then we're going to hurt you another way. And they had not shown that to this degree. But I just think of the pass that Bachmeier hit to Parker Kingston in double coverage right after his first interception of the year. That was incredible. That was incredible. The yards after catch, we really showed explosive potential from our receivers that we hadn't showed previously. So there was a lot there to like, and I think there was a lot to take away that was positive in that standpoint from our offense.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the growth that we see from Bear in every game and is just incredible. And I had someone from the oh gosh, sorry, the Cole Country podcast. Sorry, I just had them on as a guest this week as we previewed the West Virginia matchup, and he messaged me and just said, he used that word poise when talking about Bear and saying he's the real deal, and it's true. I felt like early in the season it kind of took him a little while to settle into games, but as time goes on, he's just really seems comfortable out there, and he doesn't seem phased. You talk about the interception, but also there was the fumble turnover, and both times he responded by getting the ball back and leading the team down to a scoring drive, and so
Yeah.
the bounce back, the way he just stays in the game and just seems unflappable, and I really like that. He's the moment's not too big for him, and we said we'll get to the things we dislike. There were some struggles in this game. We already mentioned the turnovers, the first of his career. Again, he's a freshman. It's amazing it took this long, and yet he seems to continue to I don't know, just improve and just can't be shaken and just continues to build on what we've seen him do. So I really love it. Really impressed. A couple things too. The chemistry with Roberts that we were a little concerned about earlier on in the season, that really doesn't seem to be an issue. I don't believe Roberts had any drop catches tonight.
Not today. No, he was money today.
Yeah. And we saw, a lot of people get involved, and Parker Kingston, as you know, I've kind of complained about him a little bit on this podcast, and he's really stepped up. And it's, the last couple games he stepped up, but tonight he really had a big game. So that was really nice. That was really heartening. And to see some of the depth in the defense, some other people come in and also fill in where they were needed and step up big time. And so you love to see all of that from this team, and the ability to get these big chunk plays, put them together and really, show that, like you said, they have that offensive spark. So I think there's a lot of good things despite when things don't really seem to be going according to plan, to still be able to go out and execute. You gotta love that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you some of the things that I think fans are going to be concerned about that I'm not. I'm not worried about the turnovers. I'm not. You can't have three turnovers. I'm not saying it's acceptable, but this offense has done such a good job of taking care of the ball. You're going to have games like this. And I'm so glad this happened in a West Virginia game. And on top of that, two of those turnovers were by Bachmeyer. And you talked about how he responded to those turnovers. He needs those times. You're going to have turnovers in football. How does he bounce back? How does he respond to those in live game situations? And he did awesome. He did awesome. So obviously, DeMooney has a lot of potential. He's got to hang on to that ball. He was the one other turnover. So I'm not concerned about the turnovers. Obviously, if it continues, it's a problem. But it's been zero turnovers up to this point, and you're going to have these strange games like this. This gives you a chance to step back and say, "Hey, let's clamp down on this again." Um, but what I didn't like were the penalties because that's starting to add up now. You're getting a lot of unnecessary offensive pre-snap infractions, and that's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's not just the offensive line; it's the wide receivers. It's uh, it's the pre-snap stuff. It's the holds. It's got to stop because it's killing our drives. That concerns me way more than the turnovers.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's finish up. I want to get back to turnovers real quick in sense of you're right. He, and we got a comment here. Let me get to both these because I don't want to skip over. So first, Mary Lou Crafts, thank you for joining the show. She said Bear did great. He needs to make decisions faster. Yes, but a couple of those turnovers came off of fast decisions and quick passes. So
He He did seem to be looking down his wide receivers more today. I felt like he was just honing in on one, and when it wasn't there, he wanted to bail and scramble. There were a couple times where he had Carson Ryan open if he would have kept his eyes downfield, and so he did seem to kind of lock on to receivers more than before. He's been so good at going through his progressions, and you just watch him hit 1, 2, 3, 4, hit the dump off, scramble for a couple yards, but he did hang on to it in that sense. I could see.
1-2 says Bear hit 7 different targets, each for significant yards. Amazing. Yeah, you love to see that, and that's something we expect to see from a BYU offense, I think. And so it also says, from what I could tell, it was wet, slippery all over the field, explaining extra turnovers and injuries. The injuries for sure, and the turnovers, yes, to an extent. The ball's a little wetter, it's going to pop out more easily. But those turnovers that Bear had were, I don't think, because of the wet ball. Those
Their
were really
decisions.
good. Yeah, they were iffy decisions, and they were actually really good defensive plays too. I mean,
They
these
were.
balls
Yeah.
just like fall into their lap. Like these guys went and got those and read his eye. So again, that's to your point. But the other thing is, I know Bear hadn't had a turnover to this point, but he had some plays where he got very lucky that weren't
Yes.
turnovers early in the season. And so if you kind of grade those the same, if we're able to like overlook turnovers, I say, oh well, that wasn't his fault, that was so and so's fault, so that shouldn't count against him. Well, turnovers that end or almost turnovers that we get lucky that we recover should kind of count against him in the same way when you're looking at, is he able to take care of the ball? And so I think he still has, so far his turnover ratio is very good to this point in the season. But I think if we're honest, we look at it and say, okay, there's some plays he got away with to this point, and that can't continue. But hopefully he learns from those. And so again, it's better to learn, in a victory.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, this is the right game to learn those lessons. It is.
yeah, it was a
But
team where you could overcome those.
correct. Um, but what we're not learning from, it seems, that is another major concern of mine is how many times Bears carrying the ball. I get that a lot of them are reads, and he's choosing to run the ball off of the read. Stop giving him the read when you're up 3 touchdowns. You're clearly going to win this game. Don't call a zone read. Don't do it because he's going to want to keep it. He loves contact. He seeks out contact, but he ran almost as many times this game as last game. And last game he had to do it. I had no problem with him doing 15 carries against Colorado because you needed that to win the game. You didn't need it here in this game. And there are going to be other games where he's got to do it. So save it. and they didn't. He got banged up. He got hit really hard, and one of those times, one of those hits is going to knock him out, and his shoulder's going to come loose or whatever it is. You can't run him 15 times in a game like this. That was my other concern, is just stop calling the zone read. If you're going to have a running game, it's handing off to the running back, or maybe he in a pass he doesn't find an open receiver and he scrambles for a few yards. That's fine, but calling the zone read as often as we did is a problem because he's going to keep it.
Yeah, and there's the play. Even the commentators called out, and maybe he didn't see the flag, but when it's holding and then he held it, and he still took a hit. He didn't even get rid of the ball or try to do something with it. That was unnecessary.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, I love his toughness. I love his grit, but you're right. Eventually it will catch up with him, especially, we're not even talking this year, over the years, that's going to start mounting up. And so, hopefully
yeah.
he can avoid that. But got a comment here from Tim Bales. Hopefully I get that right for you. But he says, congrats on a good win. I don't like losing, but if you have to lose, there's nobody in the league I would rather lose to. BYU is a class act. We Mountaineers are very glad you're in the Big 12. Well, thank you so much. Great to have you on the show. Some Mountaineers in here to discuss with us, and appreciate it. And honestly, I said this on the show earlier this week, but I'm in the East Coast. I actually feel like I'm in Virginia, and I feel like I see more West Virginia fans around. Like, you look at cars, you look
Yeah.
at decals and stuff. Like, I feel like I see more West Virginia than I see Virginia Tech or UVA.
Oh, yeah.
But also great experience with fan interactions at both the games that I attended against West Virginia, despite losing, despite the reputation. But I think a lot of that reputation is earned from their games against Pitt and some other rivals. But I think West Virginia and BYU seem to have it's just been a very good, positive relationship, even though a couple of games I went to didn't go our way.
Yeah, I agree. They've been great fans. Awesome being able to interact with fan bases like this.
Yeah. It says good luck the rest of the year. So thank you. And, go Mountaineers. Wish you guys the best of luck going forward. Honestly, I will say, I like West Virginia. Hope they figure things out. I don't hope that they win any more games this year, though, which sounds bad.
Why is
But
that?
it's bad for the conference if they go, to have this kind of start. If they're going to start knocking off some of our bowl teams, like if they
You
go
want the winners to win and the losers to lose.
at this point, that's what you need for the conference. Now, obviously, when it's my team, I'd always take my team first, but after that, you got to look at what's best for the conference. And, so
So
I'm saying
I
good luck,
I
West Virginia, next year.
I think that's true for your top three teams, right? Whoever that ends up being that separate themselves, the top three teams, you got to have them win. You got to have them dominate. Everybody else in any conference, you're going to beat each other up. Um, and so I agree. If West Virginia goes out and knocks off some of our top teams, that's tough. You don't want that. But that's really your top three teams. But um, anyway, we'll see. I think West Virginia's got a long road ahead of them. Clearly have a ton of talent. Um, you got to like what you saw from the second string in there. How about the quarterback? Fox dropping a dime at the end of the game. Um, that was frustrating for me to see our second string giving up a touchdown like that. I've been wondering when Marcus McKenzie would find himself up on the depth chart playing meaningful minutes. That throw kind of shows you why he hasn't been there, I guess, because he got beat bad, um, and that quarterback dropped a perfect pass to end the game.
Yeah, it's too bad because I think this week for our picks, I had BYU to cover and you did not. So I
Yep,
think you get that
that was the
one.
difference maker right there.
I know. Well, after LJ tore off that big run, I was like, please just punch it in. Like,
I thought he was going to do it, and LJ for all the talent he has, he does not have elite breakaway speed, and he doesn't need it. I think even to play at the next level, not all running backs have it. He's a more power back, but yeah, when he breaks into the open field, you want him to get there, and he just doesn't quite have that step.
I think it's funny for a game where you have two BYU legend running backs there on the sideline, and Tyler Algier and Jamal Williams. Sorry, it's so late. The we really had a rough time running. It wasn't really till the end that LJ started picking up with
Yeah.
some more, and that's mostly because we just kept handing it to him, trying to burn out the clock. So would have liked to see him hit that century mark. Would have liked to see one more touchdown if he could have just gotten past one more
Yeah.
guy. But nonetheless, it happened. One thing I was going to say about West Virginia before we get into the things we want to complain about and gripe about is I just thought it was just an interesting tidbit. Just obviously they were rebuilding on the fly. Rich Rod came in a little bit later, and they had to do some things. But just all the guys they were talking about and the transfer guys they were all coming from the G6 level, which is not
Hmm.
necessarily a bad thing. BYU lived in that area for a long time and pick up a lot of those guys and get the most out of
Yeah.
them. And that's definitely a way to do it. And I think that'll change. They'll get more of a mix going forward. But I think, just something I noticed when hearing about these guys and these players on the other side of the ball. So give you a little bit of context for the teams. But
Yeah.
anyway, do wish the fan base well for sure. All right, Sean says BYU needs to clean up their play, or we'll lose games in the meat of our schedule.
Yep.
The
Agreed.
yeah, you can't get away with turnovers with that amount of penalties against the upper echelon of talent, which is why I'm kind of okay that you're making these mistakes now, because that's something you can learn from. You go back and point to. If you're just blowing through everybody early on, maybe it's harder to make get those teachable lessons for these young guys. The problem is we've kind of seen it week to week, and so is there going to be that improvement?
Yeah.
Uh, Big question, but yeah, Sean, good point. I know I heard BYUSN this week. They're talking about best case and worst case scenarios for this team. I mean, I still think the worst case scenario is you go 5-7. Like we've won 5 games. Like I don't think it'll happen, but it's still within the realm of possibility for this.
Well, it always is, but define possibility, right? I mean, a 0.5% chance, a 0.1% chance, a 50%
Okay,
chance.
but
I mean,
6-6, even 7-5, like that, those are all within especially with that stretch of the schedule, it gets
so
really tough. And I think our
yeah,
team is really good. We have a lot of pieces, consider, assuming health, which we'll talk about here in a moment, but that could still happen. And some of these games are going to be, very, very competitive. And BYU's got to clean it up and got to play like at our peak in order to beat a team like a Texas Tech or Utah or Iowa State on the road the week after the Holy War.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like the progress in the passing game that they showed here today is enough. That's enough to look into it and say, yeah, what that's a statement that our offense is going to be competitive in those games. I, I think the turnovers are an anomaly, but you have to address the penalties. You're gonna get when you play an aggressive brand of offense, you're gonna get some penalties. A hold or two a game, a false start, maybe two a game, right? Y- 3 or 4 offensive penalties a game. I'm fine with that. That's aggressive football. But man, it's starting to stack up, and it's becoming a problem, and it's killing our drives.
Okay. Yeah. Ed Sean says, if I can get my mouse on it, LOL, BOU's not going 5-7. No, I don't think they will. But I'm just saying this schedule. I mean, even Arizona looks formidable this year, and you're going to their house this time, and they're probably going to remember last year. Since he's looking better than was expected. So I'm just saying, the rest of the schedule, it's just going to continue to get tougher and tougher every week. So and I think we have the pieces, and Bears continuing to improve. That if we can keep building off of that, I think BYU is capable of beating any of those teams. But
Yeah,
um,
but you got to put
you
it
know,
together,
yeah, the
and you got
problem
to
is
stay healthy. I mean, I feel like there's 3 or 4 teams in the conference that can go to the championship game, and health is going to determine 80% of who that champion is. I really do. Um, Obviously, Texas Tech can lose a starting quarterback and have someone incredible come in, and not everyone else can. But um, whoever stays the healthiest is gonna go to that championship game.
Well, and that's the thing is there's not a lot of difference being in the Big 12 now between going 6-6 and 9-3. Ultimately you're going to end up in a bowl. You're going to get a little better matchup, whatever, but there's not a huge difference there versus, going 10-2 and potentially, winning the tiebreakers, whatever, 10-2 or better, and then ending up in the conference championship game. And so, I guess that's
Yeah.
where my point is. Like, I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. Some other things to discuss here. I think I skipped over a few things. Let's see. Actually, yeah, I guess let's shift over to things that we did not like from this game, because I think we've got a lot of comments here that are gonna lead right into some of that discussion. So, um, Adam, what were the things you did not like from tonight's game?
Well, I mean, I touched on the penalties and the amount of times Bachmeyer ran the ball. I don't like those things. And then the injuries don't seem to be season ending and of massive concern yet. We'll see what Kelly's is. It looked like it might have been a fracture of some kind. If that's the case, you could play with a cast on defense. Um, if a dislocated shoulder, you can pop that back into play. So I think likely he'll be okay, but that's just me being an optimist. Glasgow was still suited up. He could have come back in the game. So I'm not concerned yet unless they come out and they say, yeah, Jack Kelly's out for 5 weeks. That's a major problem.
It is
But
huge,
short of that, I'm not. Hmm?
especially for that stretch of 5 games, right?
Yes, exactly. That's when you got to have them. So I'm not concerned yet about the injuries. I was concerned about our second unit. Like, what in the world?
Well,
How is it
what,
that
what
we
do you-
lose our two guys and then everybody's just marching down the field on us? And we can't be. I know those two guys are amazing. They are. They're the best duo we've ever had. But we can't fall apart if they're off the field for a half. We can't. Like we've got to be able to make stops with the guys we have with the backups. They've got to be able to do something. And the fourth down stop at the goal line was incredible, just to turn around and give up a 30-yard bomb. But um, there were some good things, but I wasn't concerned about much of anything on defense until that last drive,
yeah,
before the touchdown when they marched down, 75 yards on us.
yeah, absolutely. Just to quickly point out, Kelly Sling was off at the end of the game, so is that a good sign? I would
I saw
assume
that.
so. Yeah, he looked all right. He seemed to be in good spirits. We'll just wait and see. I don't know. I hope so, but because losing Jack Kelly, I mean, of our whole team, I would say there's 5 or 6 players that you just are absolutely crucial to this team, and he's one of them. And
Yeah,
so losing him would be killer. Um, and let's see here. So you talked about that drop, yeah. So I guess this is a something I love and hate at the same time. I love that we made that goal line stand twice. We made that
yeah,
twice, and
yeah,
it's I love seeing that. I love seeing that toughness, especially for a team that had been struggling and just let West Virginia, like you said, go down and march the field on them. Granted, it was aided by dumb penalties a little bit, but then I don't love the conservative play call. I understand you got to give yourself a little bit of breathing room, but I would have liked BYU to, once you got a little bit of breathing room, I would have liked them to see them try to take a shot and get out of there. Because even with a great punt, it still put West Virginia in excellent field position, and then ultimately they scored anyway. And I understand that, at that point you've got other guys in there due to some injury, but also just because the game was pretty much out of hand at that point. Rich Rod, they scored, but they also took a lot of time off the clock, basically conceding defeat there. But
yeah,
I wanted to, yeah, and 1-2 had the comment. I thought I saw one. It says, it seems to me that BYU was intentionally letting up a bit on defense in the second half to minimize risk of injuries. That may be, maybe the play call or something was a little bit different. I also think, you're putting different guys in, and but those guys, I know they're in there to develop, but they need to do that, and they need to step up, like you were saying, when those key guys go down, because they may not come back, or maybe some time before they come back, or they may get injured again, and you can't rely you got to have that depth, and these guys got to step it up.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. There's Sean says Glasgow didn't play because of injury risk. He was available if they needed him. Yeah, and I saw that, and so that is a good sign. Obviously, you want to be cautious with that. With someone like Glasgow and that level, obviously, you just don't want to take any chances. So
Yeah.
I think that is a good sign. We'll probably see him again. I don't, next week. I don't know about Jack Kelly. Tough one, but we will wait and see. What else is there that you did not like? I'll tell you, I don't know. It's just a weird game from the get go. We had, like we've talked about, some big flashes of some things we really like, but then just a lot of sloppy play, a lot of turnovers, a lot of just weirdness. And I think part of it too, I came into this game, not a lot of anxiety, a lot of
Yeah.
worry about the ultimate outcome of the game. And so I didn't come in with that same intensity. I never had the adrenaline running like normal. And so I think part of it, like I'm tired now, but the whole game just felt off to me. I don't know. Maybe the team felt that same way. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't worried about the game, and that always worries me when I'm not worried. That's how
Yeah.
I felt going into Colorado. I was worried that we were going to come out overconfident. I felt like BYU came out a lot more intentional than they did against Colorado, and so stopped them from the get-go. West Virginia looked like they really struggled from the jump. Um, so it was an odd. It got to be a weird game. I think by the time you got the fumbled pitch from Bachmeyer and they scored a touchdown, and all of a sudden it's 21-10. Then BYU response goes down 28-10 at the half, and you're thinking, man, it really should be 28-3. And then the same thing. I mean, if you look at it, besides that bomb at the end of the game where they scored a touchdown, our defense really only gave up 3 points. The other two scores were off of turnovers where you put your defense in, awful position. Um, and so it it did have kind of a weird feel, but this just felt like one of those games that we as fans typically overreact to. Um, and I'm not as concerned about most of it. I think you got to be concerned about trends. I think you got to be concerned about the penalties that have become a trend. Um, I think you got to be concerned about us giving up third and long. I think you got to be concerned about our backups not being able to lay the hammer down. Because those are things we've seen more than one time this season, and it seems to keep happening. And they're things that we're going to need later on this season to play mistake-free football, to have your backup step up when your starters get injured, and that's the kind of stuff that worries me. But I think the stuff that that made it a weird game, like the injuries and this final score not being quite what you want, that stuff doesn't bother me too much.
No, in this game, you can look at it and point to a lot of reasons why it ended up the way it ended up and say, okay, there's lots to learn from. Let's move on, and put this one behind us. Except we've kind of said that like 4 games in a row, and there's been a lot of good things from all these 4 games, especially with Bear and seeing him the way he's exceeded expectations.
Hmm.
So I don't know. So it's like I think we've all focused on the good, which we should, and what he's doing is really incredible. In fact, I just see that Rich Rod said, "Hand him the Heisman." So, we should focus on that. But it is kind of 4 games in a row where we've kind of made some excuses for why they've ended up the way they
Yeah,
have.
that
So you talk
that's a
about
great point.
trends, that is a trend, and I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you, the only time I was never really nervous, except for when we were up 14 and then they kicked a field goal to get on the board 14-3. I was like, are we about to see a comeback? Are they going to rattle off 17 straight? I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
didn't happen, but that worried me. But there's a couple comments I want to get to. So Mary Lou Kraft says soft zone when they are capitalizing doesn't work. Stiffen up. I think we've complained a fair amount about some of the defensive effort tonight. So that's a good point. And Jack says, unfortunately, if BYU shows up like they did tonight for the rest of the season, I can see 5 losses: Arizona, Utah, ISU, Texas Tech, Cincy. Hope I'm wrong, though.
yeah,
Yeah, I would say even
yeah,
TCU.
yeah. I don't disagree with that. And I think you've got to I think you got to look at it and just say we have seen games again and again where we're thinking, oh, they got to be a little bit better. They got to be a little bit better. and that's what the first part of the season was about, recognizing we were playing against lesser competition. We're breaking in a freshman quarterback. You're going to have injuries inevitably. It's still okay that we're at this point, but you got 2 games now. We're 2 games away from where it's not okay because we can't be sitting here after the Utah game saying, if we hadn't turned the ball over 3 times, we would if we didn't have 10 penalties, I could see us winning this game. So it is. It's time to put it together. And I don't mind because you've seen progress, you've seen progression from the offense every game. They were so explosive today, unlike they had been in any other game this year. And put some things together that they hadn't. And you get a few turnovers that Bear can learn from. Without those, we score 45, and this is a complete blowout. So I don't mind necessarily that we're at that point because you've hit the first 5 games of the season now. But I get really worried in 2 games.
Yeah, I was gonna say Arizona, you might be able to get away with some of this. I'm still not sure I completely believe in them, but they do have some talent, so you don't want to write them off and just blow past them. They might be the toughest team BYU will have played to this point. But yeah,
Yeah.
Utah's going to be another level. Even with Utah, I'm not even entirely sure who they are at this point, but we know the Holy War is always going to be brutal and they're always going to be tough fought games. And you think back to Zach Wilson, was it 2018? You're up 3 scores late in the game, and maybe not. But it was, at some point you're beating Utah bat, and then they find a way to come back. So you have to be able to um, keep it together in those situations. But that's where you feel good because you're like, well, Bear has shown to be able to stay poised and be able to bounce back from things, and so that is a good sign. But you're right, we got to clean up the penalties and some of the other things. So it's a learning opportunity, but again, those opportunities are becoming fewer and fewer. So we got to learn from them and clean it up now. Okay. Kyle Norton says, I mean, offensively, it was BYU's best game besides the turnovers. Yeah, that's what's so weird about it, right? It was both like their worst or their best game while also having some of their worst moments. But like I
But I
said,
think that's what you get with the explosive offense, right? I mean, that's the give and take. Is the BYU had a very careful, conservative, intentional offense up until now, and you're not having these, huge video game numbers, and they were on pace for 500 yards passing at the end of the first half because you're being more aggressive, and that is going to open you up to at times to turnovers.
yeah, and although one of those turnovers was off of a play we've been seeing all season, and so it was really a great defensive play on that pitch
Yeah,
back
yeah,
um, to LJ, and so give the defensive player credit because he made that. It looked pretty clean when he started pitching it because I was already looking ahead of LJ, thinking how many yards he could get, and then obviously that went the other way. So. It was just a great defensive play, but yeah, those are the types of things that I think he learns from. I don't know. At this point, we're just repeating, and so
yeah,
at the end of the day, these guys just need to learn from what happened tonight and get better for next week because it's only going to get tougher. Um, Something that I think was interesting, I saw from Cougar Stats on Twitter says Bear Bachmeier's 351 passing yards is 14 yards short of the BYU freshman record. Tanner Mangum threw for 365 yards versus UConn in 2015. That's why at the end, I really wanted to see a pass
mm,
play or a pass touchdown to see him get past that. I was like, oh, you know what? We took that false start. You get the 5. That's 5 more yards that he can gain. Or give it to LJ and let him, get over 100, one or the other.
yeah,
And of course, Satake, doing Satake stuff. And it was probably the right call. I mean, it was probably the right call. But on the other hand, you would have liked to have seen it go up. And
yeah,
also, I would like to
yeah,
have BYU to cover, not because I gambled, but because I picked that they would cover this week and you didn't. So, and it just looks
yeah,
better to voters and stuff. And then
yeah,
Utah's going to be playing the score game. Oh, look at what we won by him versus what you did. But ultimately, that game will be settled on the field. So whatever.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know, dude.
Well, Trevor,
I,
I'm gonna hop off. It is late out here,
I'm hopping off
and
too. So I was just ultimately, I guess I'm just, where do you like feel? Because I felt weird all night with this. So like now that we've talked through it, where do you land on this? Are we
Concern level is 2. I'm not concerned. I'm not.
okay?
I love the most important thing that came from this is that Bear Bachmeyer can drop dimes 50 yards downfield consistently. And that has to happen if we're going to vie for a conference championship. That was the one thing missing from this team. Um, Besides that, there's a bunch of other stuff going on, but it's just it's midseason stuff. You have good games, you have bad games. I'm not concerned yet. If it keeps going for a couple weeks, we're going to start losing games, and I'm going to be concerned. Right now, very low concern level.
All right. Well, I'll let you go. I just realized I got a few more comments here I want to read through real quick, and then
All right,
we'll wrap off. But I'm with you.
go
But all right,
Cougs.
man. Go Cougs. All right. So a couple others. 1-2 says game was never in doubt despite the penalties and sloppiness. I can't complain. Yeah, it's true. It never really felt in doubt, and you know, the things that were a lot of the things we're complaining about are things that they can clean up. Sean says Bear first of many 300 plus passing games. Congrats, man! And not only did he pass for a lot, like part of the reason why they went for so many, like that Roberts one, man, they were just on the money, which we weren't seeing as much of earlier in the season. We saw some where the receivers they were catchable for sure, but they had to reach a little or pull them in. But these were just in stride. He was really on one tonight. And if he can keep passing like that, yeah, you're right. We're going to see a lot more of that because we definitely have the talent to get that downfield. A blind man says getting out with a win is the most important, but hopefully next week they can clean up the game. Bear is doing amazing. Yes, obviously the win is the most important thing, which is how this team is always constructed. And people always complain that BYU slows things down and wants to, get a lead and then kind of grind it to a halt and not give the other team a chance to come back. That is a smart thing. It is not always everyone's favorite thing to see out there with the offense, but I get it, and I think it's the right thing. And like you said, sloppiness or errors or whatever you want to complain about and all, BYU won, and so you got to be happy ultimately about that. We're 5-0, moving on. Mary Lou Craft says, my rule of thumb, if coach is angry enough to talk about it to ESPN, I'm not happy. I missed it because I came on here. So what was he talking about? The turnovers? Because I could see that. I mean, he didn't look happy on the sidelines when it was happening. I know that's something that, we saw Parker Kingston get kind of lose his punt return position earlier in the season because of that. So, yeah, I think they'll definitely be working on that going forward this season. All right. Sean says this BYU football team is a lot better than it was with Wilson by a long shot. Are you comparing because of Wilson or because if you put Wilson in this team, and we're also talking what year, or are you just talking about the team as a whole? Because I'd say our depth, yeah, it's definitely, we have more depth if we're talking on offense, and then on defense, the team is just a lot better. Obviously, we now have Jay Hill, and so I would say yes, this team is a lot better. I mean, Zach Wilson was still a little more polished, but I mean, Bears playing like he did tonight. Yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to make that argument for very long. So good point. Sean says that the turnovers don't bother me as long as the big play to turnover ratio is 3-4 big plays to every turnover. All right. Okay. 3-4 big plays for turnover. Yeah. I mean, if you're able to get down there and score and punch it in, and we know that the defense is capable of limiting, even very costly turnovers to being, a touchdown a lot of times can be held to a field goal. We did see them crack a bit tonight, but we know they have that capability. So that's interesting. So I'd have to go and look at the stats tonight. I'm trying to think of we had 3 turnovers. Did we have 9 to 12 big plays? I don't know. Let me know. 1-2 says the off feeling is that our expectations are getting high, justifiably. It's the feeling of executing below potential. We're playing at a pace to compete for conference and more. 5-0, 2-0. Yeah, and something about that, right? This is my thing with it is like, again, you can live with these mistakes. This team is piecing it together. There's a lot to do. Obviously, we know that we had to adjust a lot of things on the fly in the offseason. However, the quarterback was the reason for that concern, right? It was the fact that we were losing an experienced quarterback who'd been there, done that, for a true freshman who had high ceiling, but hadn't been there, done any of this before. It was unproven. But Bear continues to come out and impress. So he's not the issue, really. And it's these other guys. We have talent at receiver. Granted, we're down JoJo Phillips. So there's some of these other guys, we're still waiting for them to flash a little bit. But we have Carson Ryan. We have, we have all these pieces. And then you go to the defensive side, assuming everyone's healthy, we've got perhaps the best linebacker duo in all of college football. And we have pieces around there. We have Jay Hill. We have great special teams. And so you look at it and think, okay, the concern was the quarterback. The quarterback doesn't really seem to be the concern anymore. And yet we're still running into errors. We're still seeing some of these issues. And so that's, I guess, where a lot of the frustration is that it feels like, okay, if we got good quarterback play, this team should be a lot better. And so I would like to see him figure that out. And again, as long as they win, I'm happy. But it does feel weird. And you wonder when this team can really start put a full game together and start clicking and gelling. You'd like to see a little bit more of that. Sean says this team cleans up some stuff and they could win a playoff game this year. I think this team's absolutely capable of winning a playoff game, but you got to get there. I think BYU could go in against just about any team in college football and at least make it competitive and be in a position to potentially win it. I think we have that kind of potential. But to get in those positions, to have those opportunities, you got to do it consistently. And when you're always playing on the edge, the odds are you're eventually going to lose some of those. We saw that happen last year. So, and Sean says, yes, I think to the ratio. So I guess if we met that ratio, I mean, again, like we said earlier in the show, the outcome was never really in doubt. So I guess we can't come away too frustrated. 1-2 says so many good moments. Fake field. I forgot about that. The fake field goal, 2 interceptions, 2 goal line stands, Bear unleashed in passing, and much more. Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought up some of those. I knew there were things I was forgetting. Obviously, we're hung up on some of these other things, but the fake field goal was fantastic. But I also wonder, why'd you bust it out now? It was kind of like in Baylor last year. You busted one of these out and then ultimately ended up kicking the field goal anyway. We still ended up kicking a field goal here, although arguably you get a little bit closer. You let Will Ferrin nail one and maybe start getting a little bit of confidence back instead of having him kick a farther one. Because had he missed a third, then maybe he starts getting in his head. But you let him get in there, kick it, whatever, and move on. So anyway, just I don't know. I'd really like to save those for, the moments when you really, really need them. But it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. Definitely a surprising moment there. 2 interceptions. Yeah. I was thinking Tanner Wall, man, getting really lucky off these deflected interceptions, but great way to be there because had that been caught, and it should have been caught, which is also not great for the defense. But Tanner Wall got there and made the heads up play to catch. But had he not, that's likely a touchdown, or at least they're right on the goal line. Let's see. Speaking of goal line stands. Yeah, the 2 back to back was fantastic. That was really, really impressive. I love that. That takes me back to like the Bronco Mendenhall defensive days, and that is something I love to see. Bear unleashed in passing. We talked a lot about that. So, yeah, I would say, and much more. You see Parker Kingston really, really coming out, and Chase Roberts and Bear connecting and seeming to have some chemistry, which I felt like was starting to build in the last game. I talked about all this at the top of the show, but yeah, Parker Kingston, one of the things is everyone always talked about how fast he was, but I felt like he made a lot of boneheaded mistakes or fumbled, whatever. But we never really got to see him that involved in as a receiver. Truly, a lot of times it was in the fly sweep or whatever. But he's had those opportunities, especially with JoJo Phillips out, and he has stepped up. So really impressed with what he's doing. So thanks for all the positive notes, 1-2. Now we can get through the last few comments, but we can end on a high note, hopefully. Mary Lou Craft says a bit of everything. I don't remember now what that was. What he was angry about. Oh, fair enough. I'll catch some of that tomorrow and the next couple of days as I go back to listen. But I am interested to hear what he has to say on that. Sean says, Demooney fumbling the ball. With our running back depth is really something to be worried about. Yes, and I'm worried too because we didn't really get a chance for him to show what he's got. You did see a bit of burst there, which is something, as Adam said, LJ doesn't have. So it'd be great to have that kind of, lightning and thunder or whatever kind of approach to the run game. But if they're not going to trust him, you give it up that easily. So he's got to really show something, I think, in practice, understanding that, yes, it was wet, but you still can't do that. So I don't know, but they're also not going to have choices. They're getting pretty far in the depth chart after LJ, without Moa. You hope now Hine, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. And Sean also says, sorry, my computer's lagging a little. It's the same reason Ty Detmer could throw 5 interceptions and still win the game. Oh, back to the ratio. Okay, I mean, fair enough. I just haven't thought about it that way, so I'm gonna start watching for that. It hasn't really been an issue up to this point in the season so far. The offense has been able to take care of the ball, but yeah, if you're able to overcome it, so that's interesting. 3 or 4. I wonder how that is statistically throughout all of college football. I'd be very interested in that. Maybe I'll put that to some of these Cougar Stats guys on Twitter and see if they can answer that. But yeah, interesting. So I'm going to be watching that for now on. If there's an interception, see if we're able to overcome it through some big plays. But all right, well, appreciate everyone hopping in tonight. Like I said, I was low juice tonight. Just the game didn't really have me amped, had me feeling weird. Just obviously it's almost 3 a.m. my time. So appreciate everyone watching the show, joining in the conversation. If you're watching the recording or live, either way, appreciate you coming on and watching the show. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Catch us throughout the week. We get various videos. Monday nights, we do all our picks. We do our power rankings. We often have guests on, and we do those live as well. So you can hop in the chat there. And then also like to get on guests to preview the matchup of the week. Still working on this week's, and hopefully we'll get something to you by midweek, give you a chance to watch the game and get prepped and primed for our next opponent in Arizona. So again, thank you for watching. Glad Cougars could come away with 5-0. Thanks for everyone bringing, venting. This is a place where we can vent together. That's what it's all about, but also bringing in some of the positivity. So let's ride this win into General Conference. Have a great next week and go beat Arizona. So, all right, have a good night and go Cougs.